Hello and welcome to Living OutFront. I'm Amy Hunter. I'm the Executive Director of OutFront Kalamazoo, and with us today we have the co-chairs of the OutFront's Faith Alliance, Pastor Sarah SchmidtLee and Rabbi Simone Schicker, and they're going to talk to us about the Faith Alliance and the important work that Faith Alliance does around LGBTQ communities in the Southwest Michigan area. So if you would each like to introduce yourself, and start with you, Pastor Sarah.
I am Sarah SchmidtLee. I am one of the pastors at the First Congregational Church in Kalamazoo, in downtown Kalamazoo. I identify as queer, and I have been a chair or co-chair of the Faith Alliance for about 3.5 years.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rabbi Simone Schicker. I'm the rabbi at Temple B'nai Israel, and I'm the new co-chair of Faith Alliance, and very happy to be here with all of you.
Could Pastor Sarah, could you give us some history of the Faith Alliance?
Sure. I will give the caveat that I have yet to discover a place where all of this history is documented. So I am sharing history that I've received from other people and that I trust is reasonably accurate. But my understanding is that the Faith Alliance was formed in about 2008 or 2009, specifically because Kalamazoo was considering revising their ordinance for workplace protections to include the LGBTQ community. And Dr. Charles Warfield, who many people know as a very respected community leader, one of the former presidents of the NAACP, he recognized that there was a role for faith communities to play in advocating for that local ordinance and for the LGBT community to be included in that ordinance. So the Faith Alliance formed as representatives from faith communities that wanted to be advocating for the LGBTQ community locally, gathered as a committee of OutFront, which at that time was the KGLRC, to figure out how to leverage the voices and the votes of the faith community around that local issue. So we've existed for a little bit more than a decade. And after that local ordinance, spent a lot of energy and time on marriage equality. And for the last 3 years, we've been shifting our focus to LGBTQ youth homelessness. And I think we are also beginning to recognize a need to speak up related to the AntiTrans legislation that's being pushed through a lot of states right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you. That's a great encapsulation of how the Faith Alliance came together. I know that I worked with Reverend Laney and Dr. Warfield to help kind of kick off the Faith Alliance getting formed back in 2008. And I'm so glad that it has remained at the forefront of the work we do at OutFront Kalamazoo. Can I ask you both what drew you to service with the Faith Alliance? How about you, Rabbi Schicker?
Sure. I also identify as queer. I've been in Kalamazoo for almost 3 years now, and it was very important to me when I first got to Kalamazoo to find a way to be involved in the LGBT community. My denomination, I'm a Reformed Jew, is very outspoken on LGBTQ rights and has been for a long time. And I also know how hard it can be to be a minority, and know the damage that religion has played in so many people's lives, and believe that faith leaders, which I believe is what Faith Alliance really does, is bring together faith leaders and people of faith who believe that our message should be that all are made in God's image, whether one believes in a God or the universe or the eternal, however one views it, that we're all ultimately the same and deserve the same rights and same protections. And just as religion has done damage, religion can be part of the solution. And I was particularly drawn to the fact that Faith Alliance was working so much on the issue of homelessness as well. Living out, living proud, and recognizing that everyone deserves a safe housing.
How about you, Pastor Sarah?
For me, it was, let me think. I began participating in a roundtable that was brought together by the Community Foundation, the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, looking at the issue of LGBTQ youth homelessness. And after attending a few of those roundtable meetings with representatives from OutFront and a number of other nonprofit agencies in town, I was very aware of being the only pastor in the room. And I was aware of how many LGBTQ youth who end up homeless are homeless because their parents reject them on the basis of their faith convictions. And so the church has been a very big part of causing that harm in the lives of those young people. And I felt like, as the only pastor in the room, it was important to me to take action as a faith leader to begin to repair some of that harm at the source, at the root. And so I approached the Faith Alliance with some ideas about how to address LGBTQ youth homelessness, how to begin conversations with colleagues at slightly more conservative churches to help them understand how imperative it is that we teach parents and families in our communities to love their children no matter what. And that's how I got engaged with the Faith Alliance. I recognized there was already this group of faith leaders who were rallying around being advocates for the LGBTQ community, and I wanted to leverage that resource for our community. And so that's how I got involved.
That's terrific. And homeless youth has become one of the biggest programs that OutFront is working on right now. And the Host Homes program is directly tied to the Faith Alliance. Do either of you feel comfortable talking about the Host Homes program?
I'm happy to take the lead on that one. So as the Faith Alliance began conversations about LGBTQ homelessness in our community, we had a few different voices in the mix that were really helpful. One, of course, was Sarah Jacobs, who was the former staff person for Out Proud Safe, who kind of was coming up with vision along with doing a lot of street outreach to figure out exactly what the nature of the homelessness problems were in our community. And then another voice was Joel Bell, who is the local director for Bethany Christian Services. And he was very interested in figuring out ways to address this problem, and was able to introduce us to some models for how Bethany Christian Services works with temporary sheltering of minors when their families are in crisis. So he was able to introduce us to a model for sheltering minors that did not require the full foster care certification process, but instead relies on power of attorney for the host family to welcome a minor into their home on a temporary basis with permission from the birth parents or the legal guardians. So that was kind of the germ of building the Host Homes program. First, we looked at the organization that Bethany works with, but we determined that their particular faith stance wasn't in alignment with what we wanted to do with LGBTQ youth. And so we began building a model that uses that same power of attorney as the basis for state housing a minor, but that is focused on being truly inclusive of both LGBTQ youth and LGBTQ host families. So that was how that project emerged. We also recognize that faith communities have, and one of the assets we bring to the community is our ability to support families when they're in times of transition and crisis. So we are hopeful that as host families for this program are screened and trained, we can also rally our faith communities to provide material support and emotional support to those host families as they take the risk of welcoming an at-risk youth into their homes. And then we also, a number of us from Faith Alliance were trained in the, shoot, why did I forget this? The one thing I didn't write down. We were trained in a family reunification program that has done a tremendous amount of research into faith-based rejection of LGBTQ youth and how to talk with those families about the harm that's caused in the effort to help families become more accepting of their children. And that program has gained a lot of success. We were really grateful to be able to receive training and to use some of that research to undergird the work that we hope to do with host homes.
Right, and that's imperative to the work that the host homes program does. We're not looking to separate children from families. We're hoping for reconciliation and learning a living model of acceptance and growth.
Family Acceptance Project is the name of the organization we were trained with.
Right, yeah. So with that, with host homes, such a great background. Thank you for giving us so much information. Some of the other things that you have on tap, I know you mentioned that the spate of anti-trans legislation across the country has really gotten your attention. Are there things that the Faith Alliance could be doing right now or is planning to do to help alleviate, maybe push back on some of these bad bills?
Do you want to take that one, Rabbi Schicker?
I can take a little bit. I can say I was part of, because of being on Faith Alliance, I was one of the people that was reached out to by a group that met with some of Representative Upton's staff, specifically about legislation, particularly on issues of the foster care system and adoption, but also leaning very heavily on the fact that this anti-trans legislation and other bills like it are causing more harm to children, right, than good, and that we have a role to play as a variety of different faiths, as a variety of different identities, particularly noting the fact that a lot of legislation goes right against what we're trying to accomplish, right? Keeping families together, keeping people healthy and safe, doctors doing their job and not legislatures' jobs,
right?
And all of that. And a recognition that plenty of our denominations actually across the board are against this type of legislation on a national scale. So there's a lot of power behind numbers and behind walking up to elected officials and saying, you've got this backwards. Being a person of faith, being a religious person, does not automatically make one against, individuals. A lot of us are working very hard to be not only tolerant, but open and accepting and recognizing the humanity in one another.
Mm-hmm. So we know for certain that kids living in a safe and affirming environment, be that environment at home and at school leads to positive outcomes for specifically trans kids. So I think it's terrific that the Faith Alliance has taken notice and is working whatever angles it can to get the attention of legislators. And I like the way you put that. You've got this exactly in reverse, you know. So we should be doing everything that we can to include and affirm LGBTQ youth rather than marginalizing them even more, which puts them at an even greater risk for suicide and violence from their peers. So what other things does the Faith Alliance do? I understand that generally most years you hold an interfaith alliance service. Are you planning to do one this year during Pride Month?
We are planning two pieces. We are planning a collection of digital resources for congregations and communities to use during the month of June in their own celebrations. Alongside, our plan is to have an interfaith service that will be part of virtual Pride alongside OutFront. We have not picked a date yet. We're waiting on that piece, but we have a planning committee together and a lot of people very excited to share their stories. Our hope is to center stories in the service. Stories
carry so much power. I know that my work that I've done before I came to OutFront with the ACLU, that was a realization that I'm sure lots of other people had before, but when the light bulb turned on to me that at the root of all good advocacy is the story of the person that is needing advocacy for them, and their voices are critically important in providing understanding and affirmation and acceptance. So I applaud the interfaith service also and the resources that you're going to bring to the community. So are there specific ways other than by looking through the OutFront website that people can get in touch with you?
Sarah, you want to take?
We meet on a monthly basis, and we meet on the third Thursday of each month at noon. We welcome participants from any faith communities. We have, not only Christian and Jewish communities that are represented here on screen, but also Unitarian, pagan, a broad variety of the different faith communities that are here in Kalamazoo. We have a lot of leaders of faith communities, but the Faith Alliance is also open to anyone from a faith community who would like to be connected into this group that's looking for ways to do advocacy and be more visible as people of faith who are supportive of the LGBTQ community. So we can share that, anyone who calls the OutFront office can get connected to our email and find out how to attend those Zoom meetings or eventually, hopefully, meetings in person again.
Right. Or they can find out through our website also, outfrontkcoo.org. So, well, I want to thank both of you for taking your time today to share the great work that you're doing, the great work that the Faith Alliance does, and the breadth of what it is that you do is amazing. There's nothing more, I think, important than bringing the community together despite their differences. And it seems to me that that's what the Faith Alliance does so very well. Living out front, living your faith out front and living your beliefs out front is one of our missions at OutFront Kalamazoo. So I want to thank you both. Thank you, Pastor Sarah and Rabbi Simone. Thank you so very much for taking time to be on Living OutFront today.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.
Thank you so much.